Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will call to order the City Council meeting for May 6, 2025. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. All right, Clerk Beck, can we do a roll call, please?
Mayor Mongat,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wong,
Hello.
Councilor Barnes,
Good evening.
Councilor Friedland,
Here.
Councilor Gallegos,
Good evening.
Councilor Sampson, and Councilor Tapia Vega.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Do I have a motion to excuse Councilor Sampson for tonight's meeting?
I move to excuse Councilor Sampson for this evening meeting, from this evening's meeting due to a personal commitment.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. That passes unanimously. Okay, so we'll begin tonight's meeting with public input. If you wish to speak during this time, please fill out one of these white speaker forms that you can access through the glass doors in the back. And you'll have 5 minutes to speak. Please state your name and address before you do so. You may also call in as well. So tonight we will begin with Ron Spalding.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Ron Spalding, 1326 El Dorado Way, Lafayette, Colorado. First of all, I want to say I'm blown away. I'm using the new audio here. It's unbelievable. You know, poor hearing this and that, and you got that up. And Deborah fixed me up the other meeting, but this is crazy. I feel like it's so good, it might be too good. I'll have to talk, maybe cut it down a little bit or something. Reverberation all, but it's unbelievable. Thank you so much. I'm going to be brief. I just want to talk about 2 items. Number 1, I fully support approving a parking modification request for Public Road Community Supper Club. Read the report by staff, and I think that's a good thing. We need to keep our businesses moving, so I hope that's passed. The second item I just want to discuss is the proclamations. The city does quite a few proclamations over the course of a year. I really enjoy this part of the agenda when they come up. And I did some research on the types of proclamations. And we have proclamations for a day, a week, and a month. And I looked over the past year what we have done. Counting tonight's 2 proclamations, we've had a total of 9 monthly proclamations, okay? And this month is going to be for Old Americans Month. Thank you very much. And it's going to be the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders Heritage Month. I just want to go over the other 7 that came up during this past year, just for information purposes. In March, this past March, we just had the annual March for Meals Month. In February, we had Black History Month. In January, we had Radon Action Month. Then November 2024, we had Lung Cancer Awareness Month. September 24, Hispanic Heritage Month. July 24, we had Plastic Free Month. And in June, we had Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month. So very important acknowledgements. I support all these monthly proclamations, but I would like to suggest, I'd like to elevate, if possible, and recognize the Lafayette Police Department for a month. We have it for a week, and it may not be able to be done tonight or this year, but thinking ahead in the future, when we look at the type of monthly recognitions we're giving. And you stayed here, but I think because of the dangerous duties, the service they do, the impact their actions have to protect the community, keep it safe, and everything that you outlined in the resolution is wonderful. But I think our first responders, they need to be at the upper level. And I know in here, you know, President Kennedy, God bless him, had May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and I know then it was designated Police Week. But it would only take 4 editorial changes to make it for the month. we could have National Police Month instead of week. We could have May 2025 instead of 11 to 17 for the week. And then down in the last paragraph, we could declare May 2025 as National Police Month. Maybe not tonight, but everything they go through and look at some of the things. I'd much rather give up my Old Americans Month and give it to the chief. He's almost as old as me now. But in all seriousness, when we look around, what's going on in the country and everything, these men and women, both in the police and fire, in my humble opinion, need to be elevated up. So I appreciate your listening to me, and I do want to take this time now for myself personally to thank the 51 service members, or glasses, sworn members of the Lafayette Police Department for their service. And I know when you say for their service, it sounds trite, because I'm military, wear your hat, everybody says thank you for your service, but they don't know what else to say. But it means a lot. So thank you, council, for listening to me. Thank you, chief, and all your staff. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have Karen Benker, our RTD Director.
Yes. Hi, thank you very much. Hello, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. My name is Karen Benker, and my address is 1919 Andrew Alden Street in Longmont. I am your new RTD Director. I thought it was probably time I came by and said hi. I also wanted to tell you some of the things that are going on with RTD and where we are right now. There's a lot going on in many ways, and in some ways it's trying to push a large boulder uphill. But in February, I did meet with Katie and Jeff Arthur, and we talked about some of the needs that your city has facing transit mobility issues. Some of the items that we talked about, just to let you know, was to restore the LX, hopefully to hourly service, restore the jump to Boulder, the request for 228 extension to serve the YMCA and expand it to the Carmen Center. And then we also had a very good discussion about Colorado 7 and the potential BRT from Brighton to Boulder, which I'm still learning quite a bit about, because it seems like there's a lot of discussion going on. No final decisions have been made, but I'm hoping RTD is going to be a part of that discussion, because from what I can tell right now, there's a lot of talk going on between Boulder and perhaps CDOT providing the service. I would prefer that it would be RTD that provides the service. I'm hopeful. To go back to the LX, I'm hopeful that this coming run board in September will restore 3 round trips of the LX. I'm being told by our general manager that that should be occurring. It's still not a done deal, but I also wanted to share a story with you, because we've been trying up in Longmont, as I know you have too, been trying to work with folks to bring the Northwest Rail to fruition. And so our mayor, Joan Peck, she's been meeting with some of our RTD board directors, and one of them, I'll just call him Chris, doesn't have a car, so he completely relies on RTD to get around the metro area. He had a very hard time getting up to Longmont, so he made it to the Broomfield Park and Ride, and then he missed the LD, and he had to take an Uber up to Longmont. Okay, so he had his meeting with her mayor. Then he had to try to figure out how to get back home. Okay, so what he ended up doing is he had to take the bus to Boulder and then took the FF back to Denver, and it took him about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours to get back. So not only am I an advocate for restoration of the LX, but I now have several board directors that understand the need, that we really do need more service. The other 2 things that I just wanted to briefly mention to you is, and I'm sure your staff already knows about this, the partnership program for RTD is open again, and if you do have any requests or any grant submissions, you have until May 14th to submit a request. It's up to 3 years. It's for local service within your community. And then the other thing I really wanted to touch on was the progress that's being made on bringing rail to Boulder and Broomfield counties. There have been a lot of people working on this issue. It doesn't get a lot of press. You probably haven't heard too much about it unless your staff has been updating you on what's been going on. So far, just an FYI, Lafayette taxpayers have paid $25 million toward this project over the past 20 years, and you've not received anything. And that's one of the things that I've been working very hard on to try to make sure that this is actually going to happen. So this tentatively, I believe it's actually going to happen on May 28th. The RTD board is going to be voting on the first intergovernmental agreement between all of the players, which include CDOT, the governor's office, Front Range Passenger Rail. And if you can make it on that Wednesday, so our board meeting normally is on Tuesdays, but because of the Memorial Day weekend, it's going to be on Wednesday. So if any of you can make it down and come to Public Invited to be Heard, or send our board an email or some sort of communication to let them know that you really want to see this rail built. The funding sources are there. There's a few variety ways that we can do it. We haven't settled on exactly how to pay for it, but there are revenues provided by the state legislature last year, so it is possible to go forward, bond it, and make it happen. So any help that you can provide would be very much appreciated. So I also wanted to say, if you ever need something, please feel free to call me. I'm here to serve you. I'm doing my best to try to nag RTD about the services that we need in this particular district, because the district goes from Longmont all the way down to Broomfield. And the agency is large, $1.2 billion budget, and we do tend to move slowly, but I'm working hard to be a thorn in their side. So thank you very much, and please don't hesitate to contact me.
Of course, thank you. In the future, we should set up a time for you to come in and do a presentation. That way you're not limited to the public comment piece.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay, next up, we have Scott Gribling, and please correct me if I mispronounced your name.
It's Griebling.
Griebling.
And I was going to speak to agenda item,
Oh.
the public comment later.
Oh, for the public hearing later?
Yes.
Of course, we'll save that. All right, I'm not seeing any more speaker forms in front of me, but are there any other members in person that wish to speak during this time? Okay. I'm gonna double check to see if we have any speakers online. We do have one caller. So caller with a phone number ending in 765. Talking is now permitted, and you may speak when you're ready. Go ahead, caller phone number ending in 765. You are unmuted and you may speak when you are ready. Okay. Sorry, caller, we're not able to hear you. But hopefully, I'll check back in to see if you're on the call for the public hearing later. If you wish to speak on that item, if you wish to speak on a different item, please email us directly and we'll be able to respond as quickly as possible, or give us a call tomorrow. But we are eager to hear what you have to say. Just please reach out when you can. Okay, so that looks like those are all the callers for tonight. So with that, we will close public input and move forward with our consent agenda. We have lots of items tonight. This includes item A, April 15th, 2025, City Council meeting minutes. Item B, April 22nd, 2025, City Council workshop summary. Item C, first reading of ordinance number 9, series 2025, repealing and reenacting in its entirety Article 2 of Chapter 115 of the Code, adopting by reference the 2024 Model Traffic Code for Colorado with local amendments and providing penalties for violations thereof. Item D, second reading of ordinance number 7, series 2025, authorizing a lease agreement between the City of Lafayette and the City Historical Museum for the property located at 108 East Simpson Street. Item E, second reading of ordinance number 8, series 2025, providing for additional appropriations during the fiscal year of 2025 for unanticipated 2025 revenues and expenditures required for the City of Lafayette, specifically carry forwards of 2024 expenditures, appropriation of certain 2024 capital project items, and modification of current 2025 budget line items. Item F, resolution number 2025-23, setting a contractual limit for the purchase of a fire apparatus and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute a contract with Front Range Fire Apparatus for such purchase. Item G, resolution number 2025-24, approving the intergovernmental agreement between Boulder County and the City of Lafayette regarding the 2025 Youth Corps program services. Item H, resolution number 2025-25, approving the third amendment of the Regional Grant Management System Collaboration Agreement. Item I, resolution number 2025-27, extending the deadline for compliance with conditions in resolution number 2024-43, pertaining to the approval of the site plan and architectural review for Lot 15 Vista Business Park. And item J, change order number 5, OTEC Inc., South Boulder Road Multimodal Improvement Project, Construction Management and Inspection Services. Are there any items that council would like to pull? If not, we'll take a motion, please.
I move to approve consent agenda.
Second. You have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? None opposed. That passes unanimously. Okay, that brings us to proclamations for tonight. Lots to celebrate. We will begin with, or to acknowledge, we begin with item K. This is Lung Cancer Action Week for May 5th through the 11th, 2025. Councilor Tapia.
Thank you, Mayor. Lung Cancer Action Week. Whereas, since 2024, the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative has been working to ensure that fewer people are diagnosed with lung cancer and those living with the disease live longer. And whereas lung cancer is a leading cause of cancer deaths, and whereas lung cancer screening saves lives, and advocacy and increased awareness will result in more high-risk individuals getting screened, and whereas public support for research funding will result in new treatments and better methods of early detection, and whereas Lung Force is a national initiative led by the American Lung Association to defeat lung cancer. Now, therefore, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Lafayette, Colorado, do hereby declare the week of May 5th through the 11th, 2025, as Lung Cancer Action Week throughout the City of Lafayette, and encourage all residents to learn more about lung cancer, its risk factors, the importance of early detection, and to take action. So moved.
Second.
Right. We have a motion and a second. Before we take a vote, we do have Nick Torres here from the American Lung Association. I'd like to invite you up now. If you want to speak more about this proclamation or about your organization, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nick Torres, Advocacy Director for the Lung Association here in Colorado. Also proud resident of Lafayette, moved here last summer. So really appreciate the opportunity to recognize our Lung Force Initiative and Turquoise Takeover Week. It's our effort to give a little bit of a boost to lung cancer awareness. We know that, including here in the city, recognize Lung Cancer Awareness Month in November. We find that with lung cancer being the leading cancer killer and Colorado's screening rates being actually among the lowest in the country, any opportunity to really boost awareness is really appreciated. Particularly in light of what's happening at the federal level, the NIH and CDC, and even Medicaid, where 1 in 4 lung cancer patients receive their health care, kind of highlights the importance of partnerships locally. And so really just wanted to come and say, count us as a partner, me personally, whether it's, awareness building the public for lung cancer screenings, policy making in terms of tobacco prevention, oversight of retailers preventing flavored products, particularly from getting in the hands of young people. Radon testing and mitigation, we partner with the State Health Department on the Low-Income Radon Mitigation Assistance Program. So just happy to be here as a partner for all of you, and a special thanks to the clerk's office for helping to coordinate this request, and appreciate your time tonight.
Of course, thank you for being here, and we'll be sure to send you over a copy of the proclamation as well.
Thank you.
Any questions for, or comments for this proclamation or for Nick? Councilor Barnes?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering if you could give us an idea of if one were going to get screened, where would they go to do that? Is it their doctor's office or a different location?
Yeah, so primarily right now, the screening risk pools are assigned based on smoking history or smoking status. And so the first conversation is always recommended with the healthcare provider. There's lots of specialized screening centers as well. We have maps of some of those screening facilities and lung cancer programs on our website. Our State of the Lung Cancer Report provides a lot of that, which is lung.org/SOLC for the public. But yeah, first conversation would be the healthcare provider. And then once an individual is in the pipeline, there may be need for follow-up screenings as well. So it's a low-dose CT scan is the screening tool. The rates for screening are really much lower than, say, a mammogram or a colonoscopy. And so we're really hoping that those screening rates will continue to rise as more people understand the risk factors and the availability of those low-dose CT scans.
Thank you.
Awesome. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you for being here tonight. All right. So we do have a motion and a second on this proclamation. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? None opposed. That motion passes unanimously. And we'll be in touch, like I said, about getting you a copy of that. So thank you for being here. Appreciate it. All right. Next up for proclamations, we have item L. This is National Police Week for May 11th through the 17th, 2025. Councilor Gallegos.
Proclamation, National Police Week, May 11th through 17th, 2025. Whereas in 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed a proclamation designating May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which it falls, Police Week. And whereas the members of the Lafayette Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the residents of Lafayette. And whereas it is important that all residents understand the challenges, duties, and responsibilities of their police department, and that members of the Lafayette Police Department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence or disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. And whereas the Lafayette Police Department has grown to be a modern and scientific law enforcement agency which unceasingly provides a vital public service. Now therefore, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Lafayette, Colorado, do hereby declare May 11th through 17th, 2025 as National Police Week and May 15th, 2025 as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and encourage all residents to formally recognize the 51 sworn members of the Lafayette Police Department for their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities and their dedication to the community. Further, the City Council of the City of Lafayette wishes to honor all police officers who, through their courageous deeds, have lost their lives or have become disabled in the performance of duty. So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, a motion and a second on that proclamation. Any comments or discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Wong?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to take a quick moment and, since I know Chief Basher's here this evening, to thank him personally and his officers. I know that, gosh, it kind of just hit me that this is going into my last time that I heard this proclamation sitting up on this dais. So I just want to take a moment and thank him and also recognize former council member Medrano, who is currently serving as an officer in the neighboring community of Erie, and just to recognize her service to Erie's police force. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Well, we do have a motion and a second. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? None opposed. That passes unanimously. Thank you.
Oh, one last thing, sorry. I did want to also encourage any council member who has not done a ride-along to do a ride-along with Chief Basher, one of his officers. Actually, probably one of his officers. So I would certainly encourage you to do that if you haven't done it yet. It is quite an experience. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, next up on proclamations, we have item M. This is for Older Americans Month, May 2025. Councilor Barnes, is that you?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Proclamation of Older Americans Month, May 2025. Whereas May is designated as Older Americans Month, a time to celebrate and honor the older adults in the city of Lafayette and to focus on changing the way society speaks about and addresses aging. And whereas this month encourages individuals and communities to challenge stereotypes and dispel misconceptions surrounding aging. And whereas the city of Lafayette recognizes that older adults deserve respect and acknowledgement for their valuable contributions while exploring the many opportunities available to regain active, engaged, and fulfilled, to remain active, engaged, and fulfilled as they age. And whereas the city of Lafayette emphasizes the importance of connections formed through the aging process, and whereas age is merely a number and does not define an individual's worth or potential, now therefore the mayor and city council of the city of Lafayette, Colorado do hereby proclaim May 2025 as Older Americans Month. This year's theme, Flip the Script on Aging, highlights the transformative shifts in how society perceives and embraces aging. Further, the City Council encourages all residents to join in recognizing the vital contributions of Lafayette's older residents and to support the programs and activities that foster inclusion, positive perceptions, and support for older adults. So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, any comments or discussion on this proclamation? Councilor Brown?
I'll just say that as the council representative to the Senior Advisory Board, I'm always encouraged by the support that the Senior Advisory Board members are receiving and the response from them as they engage more deeply in city decisions. And they're deeply engaged in understanding more about the capital bond question that's coming up. And appreciate the fact that what they are doing is being acknowledged.
Were you going to add something?
Yes, I just wanted to thank all the residents that are participating on the Senior Advisory Board. I know I have come across them at many events, including this last weekend at the Farmers Market, so I appreciate that. And also to make a special note of thank you to former Mayor Pro Tem Stephanie Walton, who is currently serving on that as her after-council activity. So really do appreciate Stephanie's work with that and her work with Dr. Cog, because that was also part of a regional effort to support our seniors in the Denver regional area. So thank you to Stephanie for all her support and work. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Were you going to add one more thing?
I don't know, I just can't, I gotta mention that Senior Advisory Board, the word senior is something still to be addressed, and older Americans is something that the Senior Advisory Board is interested in. So maybe in the future, we're looking at the Older Americans Advisory Board. Just a thought, maybe, as a name change.
Or committee or commission. All right. Great. So we do have a motion in seconds. All those in favor of that proclamation say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? None opposed. That passes unanimously. And finally, we are on to item N. This is Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month for May 2025. Mayor Pro Tem Wong.
Thank you, Mayor. So whereas this Heritage Month originated in 1977 and was officially signed into law in 1992 to celebrate the contributions made by people who are of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander AANHPI heritage to the country's culture and society, and whereas the month of May was selected to recognize people of AANHPI heritage for many reasons, including to commemorate the first Japanese immigrants who came to the United States in May of 1843 and mark the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10, 1869, which involved the labor of many Chinese immigrants. And whereas the Federal Asian Pacific American Council has designated this year's AANHPI Heritage Month theme as a legacy of leadership and resilience, which pays homage to the visionaries and trailblazers who have shaped AANHPI history and continue to influence the future. And whereas the Lafayette City Council celebrates all those who are included within the AANHPI community, which is made up of culturally and linguistically diverse peoples representing populations from many countries and islands, and whereas the Lafayette City Council acknowledges and appreciates the contributions in a variety of fields and leadership of the many Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders who have played a significant role in the region's history and community fabric of Lafayette. Now, therefore, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Lafayette, Colorado, do hereby declare May 25th as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and encourage all Lafayette residents to share in this special tribute by learning about and celebrating the generations of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders who continue to enrich the city, state, and nation. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or discussion on this proclamation? Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take a moment and recognize the 15 elected members in the state of Colorado. Again, 15 elected members of the state of Colorado who are serving in both county and city government from the AANHPI community. Very glad to see that our numbers are continuing to increase, but I would like to see that to continue to grow, and hopefully soon we'll have some at the state level. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Of course. Yeah, we're used to 5 or less, so 15, that's pretty good. And special shout out to Mayor Pro Tem Wong, who's been doing a hard work organizing all those electives and creating sort of a community there. And to let Asian Americans know that, running for office is a career path that, that is valued and prestigious and should be pursued as well. All right, any other comments, Councilor Barnes?
Shout out to Councilor Wong. And I also want to, this reminds me of a high school student in Lafayette who asked me if we could put on the Jumbotron on 287 to recognize Asian American, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And it also reminded me of a story that I tell in my science-related job that I didn't know, and I believe it's pronounced Xin Wu, who was a Chinese-American particle and experimental physicist who made significant contributions in the fields of nuclear and particle physics. Wu worked on the Manhattan Project, where she helped develop the process for separating uranium into uranium-235 and 238 isotopes by a gaseous diffusion. She's known for conducting the Wu experiment, which proved that parity is not conserved. And this discovery resulted in her colleagues, Tseng Dao Li and Chen-Ning Yang, winning the 1957 Nobel Prize, but not Wu, but in physics. But she herself was awarded the inaugural Wolf Prize in Physics in 1978. So I just would like to mention this is news it was new to me when I found out about it, and just like to give a shout out to someone who did not get recognized for that work in nuclear physics.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, so we do have a motion and a second on this proclamation. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? None opposed. That proclamation passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, so that gets us on to regular business for tonight. We will begin with item O. This is a public hearing for first reading of ordinance number 10, series 2025, amending chapter 26 of the development and zoning of the Code of Ordinances regarding regulations for accessory dwelling units, as noted in the Daily Camera for April 11th. We have Phil Kleiser here to get us started with the process. There will be an opportunity for public comment through this as well.
Good evening, Phil Kleisler, City's Planning and Building Department. Thank you very much for your time this evening. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider an ordinance amending the regulatory requirements for accessory dwelling units or ADUs here in Lafayette. The recommended order of events for this agenda item include a staff presentation, council questions, public hearing, and lastly, council's deliberation and vote. So getting into the presentation, we'd like to provide just a little bit of background on the project and how we got here. And first, why now? So the city did expand the use of ADUs in 2023, and at that time, we'll talk through what those expansion efforts entailed, but that was seen as an interim effort where we would make further tweaks in our land use code. That's currently underway, and we are scheduled to have a draft of the full code out in the late summer of this year. That said, there was a state law that was passed last year that comes with it some funding opportunities that would benefit our residents, and so we're opting to make these more minor tweaks to our code in order to become available for that funding stream. That said, we've also have heard since that 2023 amendment that some of the regulations are also, particularly as it relates to parking that we'll get into, have been a barrier to some of our property owners for constructing an ADU. And so when thinking about this, we did find that it's also consistent with our established plans and policies, including the comprehensive plan and our housing strategic plan. And so in detached ADUs were allowed in the Old Town Residential Zone District for about 20 years. These are now well established in the community. And in 2023, we expanded the allowance of ADUs to be mostly citywide. So in any zone where you could have a single unit detached home, you could have an ADU. And we also expanded the types of ADUs to include not only detached, but also interior. So basements, second floors, as well as units that are attached to the house. And so in our code, the attached and the interior are kind of defined under the same definition. Since 2023, we've processed 10 permits for ADUs. 7 of those permits would have likely been allowed, and most of those were already kind of in progress as we were making the amendments under the old rules. So 3 of them were outside the Old Town area. So that means those 3 were made possible through council's amendment in 2023. And 2 of those were attached ADUs. And so this was the first time I think our staff had an opportunity to go through that process. What we've been finding is that there's definitely some more problem solving from the residents and their designer, because they're designing a home inside a home that didn't anticipate the home when it was built, if that makes sense. And as well as our staff of just problem solving of how to ensure that it complies with the building code. It's something that we're continuing to just kind of learn as a city organization and look forward to continuing to assist our residents in the future. Our current regulations, just a snapshot of those, they're mostly allowed citywide. We'll show a map here in just a moment of where that is. An ADU needs to be on the same lot and it's accessory to that primary home. It's a single unit detached home as shown here. We have a maximum size limit in most of the residential zones where ADUs are allowed. It's a 30% maximum lot coverage. We do require 1 off-street parking space for the ADU, so it's a space specifically designated for that occupant or occupants. The height for detached ADUs in Old Town is 20 feet, outside of Old Town is 16 feet. The proposed ordinance really has 3 main changes. The first change deals with location, and I think the next slide will include a map. But right now, again, they're allowed in the zones that allow a single unit detached home. That would accompany about a little over half of our housing supply right now would be generally eligible for an ADU. So what this ordinance would do would expand it to 3 additional zone districts. That would be the agricultural, public, and developing resource districts that currently allow a single unit detached home. The second change would be around parking, and so as I mentioned, we do require that 1 space. The recommended ordinance would no longer require that dedicated off-street parking space on the property, but it would require it if there was no space on the property, not a space on the property, and parking was prohibited or along the street, along that block. The third change in this ordinance relates to design standards. We do have several subjective design standards and some standards that apply to the ADU and not the primary home. So what we're recommending is to take those out of the code and rely instead on the more measurable standards like setbacks and height. Those standards, one of them affects all ADUs, and it relates to having a similar level of design treatment around the ADUs like windows and so on, but it doesn't apply that to the primary home. And then the second would be around attached ADUs or interior ADUs. So there's some subjective language around like clearly subordinate building forms shall be aesthetically consistent with those of the primary home, things like that. So we're taking some of that subjective language out of the code at this time, or recommending that. So based on this ordinance, these are the locations where ADUs would be allowed in the city. So it's most geographies except our commercial and industrial areas. Now the caveat here is that there's zones here that would have apartments and things like that. And so ADUs, as this ordinance would implement, would still only be allowed in those detached single unit homes. This ordinance, though, these are the three zones where it adds, where it expands to, and those would be the public zone where we're at today, the developing resource, and the agricultural zone. So the Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on April 23rd last month and voted 4-0 to recommend approval of the proposed ordinance as written. There were 2 members of the public that spoke in support of the proposed ordinance at that meeting. We included the written comments as attachment B to the memo in your packet this evening. That public comment was penned by 4 local architects that have a lot of experience in our code. They included a handful of recommendations that generally focused on ensuring more flexibility and more expansion efforts for ADUs in Lafayette. Some of those included allowing an ADU in all houses, even if some of the underlying standards aren't met, like a lot coverage and things like that. Expanding ADUs to not only be in a detached home, but also like in a duplex attached home. Increasing, having an incentive to increase the size of the ADU if it is a single story and accessible ADU. Allowing a larger ADU if it occupies a basement or an upper level, and increasing the height outside of the Old Town area. So when thinking through those comments, one, we were appreciative because it's 4 local architects taking time out of their day to share those with us, and so they're helpful. We have also talked about those previously at the Land Use Code Working Group and as staff as well, and so it's something that we've considered as kind of folding into the larger Land Use Code update. And so we're actually having a working group meeting next week, and it's something that we could add to that discussion if council didn't have hesitation around doing that. That land use code, just as a reminder, the working group consists of the Planning Commission, board representatives, and five community members. So it's something that we could do, but we would recommend it be a separate process from this specific ordinance. Next steps, as scheduled, council has scheduled a second reading on June 3rd. And the specific funding program for this is called the ADU Fee Reduction and Encouragement Grant Program. We expect to know a little bit more about that in late June, early July. And that would include some funding in place that would help offset the cost of providing financial assistance to locally promote ADUs, as well as a potential CHAFA funding program for our residents. The staff recommendation is approval of the proposed ordinance, and we'll break for council questions prior to the public hearing.
Great. Okay, council questions from the presentation. Councilor Frieden.
Around allowing ADUs on developing resource zoning, what would that look like? I'm trying to understand why that's necessary. Same with ag. I guess help me understand why we made this decision to include those two?
Absolutely, yes. So the agricultural district is only in that silo area. That's the only place in the city limits. And then this lighter green area includes the developing resource zone. So when looking at the table that says whether or not you can build a single unit home or an ADU, these were areas that allow that single unit home. And so if we said you can no longer have the single unit home, then they become non-conforming, and it becomes a headache to do minor adjustments to your property.
Yeah.
And that wasn't really the intent here. And so in this case, we just opted to allow an ADU for those primary homes.
Okay.
And in those cases, like the developing resource, there are some properties with just a house on it.
Right.
We've gotten one property owner interested in that, but most likely it's going to be pretty inconsequential to any
Thank you.
impact.
All right, other questions? I did want to clarify, I do have a question while councilors get a moment to think. Actually, did you have something you wanted to
I do, yes.
Go ahead first.
I was just wondering if you could clarify, do ADUs need to be owner occupied? Can they be used as rentals, or could a family member live in them?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We do not require owner occupancy. So.
Thank you.
If it's a short-term rental, owner occupancy comes into play,
Yeah.
but not for a traditional ADU.
It's like 10 months out of the year, something, for the STRs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, SDR, it's your place of typical return, so there's not a specific time frame on it. But, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just, so you mentioned earlier in your presentation that you had received some feedback from the public regarding some possible adjustments or amendments to this ordinance, including, expansion of underground ADUs, the size limitations to that, just where they could be located, and if their purpose is to be just to attach to single family or detached from single family homes, or to other structures as well. And so then you did mention that you felt it'd be more appropriate to bring up those recommended changes during the code update as opposed to through this ordinance. Can you clarify that a little bit more on what that process would look like if we did want to recommend those changes, and why you feel like that's a more appropriate time?
Well, the conversation's already started with that working group around tweaks to the ADU ordinance, and so this would be kind of a continuation and hopefully a conclusion to those conversations. And so the land use code project also includes a team of consultants that can help us write it and give us a view of best practices, and it has some built-in engagement that we'll be doing along the way, so we can do a bit more analysis and engagement, more so than we could have done over the couple weeks between the planning commission meeting.
And that
today.
engagement process, that involved members of the public,
Yep.
and I'm sure at a later point, like when that process is more defined, we'll be advertising on, like, if you want to be a part of this conversation, come to this location at this date.
Yep.
And then, when will those conversations be taking place?
Yeah, we'll be giving council an update on your next meeting on May 20th, but over the next few months, we'll be doing these kind of lighter touch engagement efforts. Like right now, we have some online engagement happening, and once the full code is drafted later this summer, there'll be 4 to 5 months of more community-wide engagement, and that's where we'll see more of those larger open houses and things like that. So it comes later in the year once the full code is there, so that you can kind of connect the dots between the different chapters. That's the approach.
Okay. All right, any other questions from council for now, before public comment? All right, let's move forward. On the agenda, we have, or still part of the same item on the agenda, but we have, this is a public hearing. You will have, similar to earlier today, you'll have 5 minutes to speak on this topic. Please state your name and address before you do so. And so we will begin with Scott Greibling, and correct me again, please. Greibling.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. My name is Scott Greibling. I live at 965 Mallory Street in Lafayette. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you, and certainly thank you to staff for the presentation and considering the recommendations. I'm speaking on behalf of the recommendations in the letter that I believe was circulated to council and was mentioned in the presentation. And really just want to say, I commend the city in all of its efforts that it has taken to advance ADUs in the city. I think all of that effort really aligns with the housing plan's strategic objective, which is stated as Lafayette will promote a diversity of housing that meets the unique needs and incomes of all Lafayette residents. I think ADUs really serve a key role in that. They're certainly not the silver bullet in fixing all of our housing needs, but we are in a housing crisis, and ADUs fill a particular gap that can allow housing for elders to age in place, for adult kids to stay at the home, before launching on their own, for young couples to actually live in a house instead of an apartment. And I believe that the proposed changes before you don't quite address the scale of that housing crisis and of the demand. I think staff has been working diligently and certainly commend their efforts. And I really appreciate the desire to continue working towards adopting more robust ADU regulations in future, the land use code update. However, I do think this is a unique opportunity. I think the Colorado legislator really took some bold action in House Bill 1152 that passed the support for ADUs and wanting to make communities more ADU friendly. And I think the city has an opportunity to follow suit and to take some bold and really exemplary leadership in this area to not be burdened by concerns of the not in my backyard or a slow process that might hinder the opportunity, hinder the community from realizing its full opportunities and provide all these benefits. I won't restate all of the different recommendations. They were stated well by staff and are also in that letter, but appreciate the time to talk before you and just really implore the council to consider taking this opportunity now rather than referring it back to a working group and waiting till down the road for change to happen. So, thank you very much.
Of course, thank you. All right, are there any more speakers in person that wish to address this topic? Ron Spalding? And you know the drill. Okay, thank you.
I wasn't going to speak, but I have a question. I'm confused when you say no ADU parking is required unless the site and street like parking. I don't know. The current code is you need one parking spot. I'm trying to picture in my mind. I'm a little old and feeble. Does that mean if you put in an ADU and you had on the back lot you had a driveway for parking? I mean, if there's no place to put a car parking on the property, it allows it to be on the street. Who determines if the site or the street lack parking? I mean, you have, in the neighborhood you have parking all the time, and if it doesn't say no, if it's allowed to have parking on the street, but you go down one day and it's all filled up, I'm out of parking, and you go down another day and there's plenty of spot to park. I don't know. I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to understand it. I'm for the whole ordinance and all that. I know I'm not allowed to ask staff that question, but I'm just confused. I'm trying to see. I'm missing something by that terminology. I'm sorry.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any more in-person speakers? All right, I'm going to go back to our caller online from earlier. Hopefully you're here for this topic. So caller with a phone number ending in 765. We have allowed speaking on your end, so you may go ahead and just speak into the phone. You're ready. Caller with a phone number ending in 765. I see your hand is raised, and so we want to make sure we hear your thoughts. So please take a moment, speak into the phone when you are ready. Okay, we are not able to hear you, unfortunately. But as I mentioned earlier, please reach out to us directly via email so we can hear your thoughts. Looks like we do have another caller on the line as well. So a caller with a phone number ending in 239. If you are interested in speaking on this topic regarding ADUs, you may go ahead and speak now, but please let us know if you are not here for that reason. So caller with the phone number ending in 239, you may speak now. All right, so it looks like we are not able to hear this caller either. We do apologize for that, but please reach out to us directly on our emails or through a phone call. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, so I'm not seeing any more folks here for public input regarding this. So with that, I will close public input and we'll move on to council discussion. I want to just check back in with council to see if there are any more comments or items they'd like to bring up or questions for staff.
I do, Mayor, thank you. So I'm curious, I do have two questions for staff. Thanks, Philip. So in terms of the first comment that we got, what like more aggressive measures were considered, and what was the thinking around let's hold off until our land use update, or that's not feasible for our community? Can you just help us think through your thinking and staff's thinking and on this piece?
Yeah, the biggest overlap, I think, with the letter that we received for a public comment and what we've discussed as part of the broader code update relates to some of the incentives for an accessible ADU. So there's a lot of dialogue at the working group meetings around larger ADUs and smaller homes and wanting to provide an avenue for those ADUs to be a single story, but maybe be more horizontal instead of vertical. And so that's where that conversation goes. But this, I believe it was our representative from the Senior Advisory Board brought up the real need to have larger accessible ADUs. And so that's something that aligns pretty perfectly with what we've talked about. And I think there's just a general desire to ensure that if there's things that are a barrier to ADU development, that we try to address those proactively as part of the code. But these included things that we hadn't thought of before, though, quite a few.
Yeah. And so we have a process through our land use code update to have those conversations and vet those things and see what's best. Yeah. Okay. And then I did have a question around parking. I think it was a fair point that was raised. It is a little confusing, I will say, in that. So help me understand the parking rule. So I think I'm pretty clear on if parking along the roadway or along the street is just simply not allowed. Mm-hmm. That's one condition that would be a consideration. But I think the one it is a little more confusing is if there's parking already on site. So help me understand that. So if you have a home that already has, ample parking, mm-hmm. and you're adding an ADU, that you're not going to be required to add a parking space because you already have ample parking, right?
And we wouldn't require that parking space if you're on a property that doesn't have parking for the ADU, and then it also doesn't allow it on the street. That's when we're saying, well, let's look on the property and try to construct
put
a space for you to park. Yeah.
So in other words, if you have a really restricted street and a restricted lot where you just don't have parking for that ADU, mm-hmm. that's the case where you would be required to put in a parking space.
That was the thought. two reasons. One is the comp plan talks about expanding AUs, but it also recognizes potential parking issues that come with that, with not requiring parking. And some of the funding stuff from that bill, it's an allowance that provides as well.
Thank you so much for the clarity. I appreciate it.
Thank you. More questions or comments? Okay. It looks like we did have some folks that are trying to call in regarding this topic, and I want to just try it one more time. I think it might be on our end, so I'm going to reopen public input if possible, right? Okay, I got to check with the attorney
Yeah,
first.
we're currently looking into it, so we can try again, or if there are other questions we could.
It's kind of related. So one of the people who we're trying to get through actually emailed her comments.
Great.
So I don't know if we're able to read and consider them.
Yep. Okay, so yeah, if you council is interested, double check your email for one of those comments. We're gonna try one more time though. I just want to make sure that folks feel heard. So I'm gonna reopen public input regarding this agenda item here, and we're gonna try one more time with caller number or with a phone number ending in 765. So caller, let's try this one more time. Phone number ending in 765. Talking is now permitted, and you may speak now. It looks like we are still unable to hear you, unfortunately, but we have our IT staff working on that right now, so hopefully we'll be able to hear from you later tonight. All right, so I'll go ahead and close public input now and turn it back over to council for any other questions, comments, or any other items they'd like to bring up before we bring it to a vote. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, a couple thoughts. Number one, I think that the letter from the architects was very helpful. And I just want to point out that Eric Ellis, who has signed on to that letter, is a former planning commissioner who I had the honor of serving with at my time on the commission. And I think that he offered the suggestions offer some insight. And I'd like to also share with council some of my thoughts regarding that Louisville is actually working on implementing some of these changes to their ADU code. And I think it's finally great. There's one correction I do want to make. I want to thank the state for following our lead, because Lafayette has been the leader from ADUs for a very long time when we allowed it within Old Town. So it is our lead that the state is now following, and they should always be following us. So just want to make that statement personally, because again, I think I am open to either going either way with the proposed amendments, either putting them in now or having the working group look at it. I'm fine either way, but I just want to say that I am supportive of that. And so I'll leave it to the rest of my colleagues to share your opinion and kind of dig in. But I'm open to potential amendments to allow for that as well. So thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Thoughts from Mayor Pro Tem. Councilor Barnes.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a chat with Mr. Ellis as well, and the comments that were sent in to us resonate. We've been having this conversation for years about ADUs and making them affordable, and some of the comments that are in this piece address the challenges with making them affordable. And I think we do need to get this across the finish line, add some of these suggestions that I see into the ordinance if possible, to also provide for the possibility for, yes, we can get the housing, but we also need to make it affordable. So I don't know if these comments can be considered in the ordinance or before we make a vote on it, but I would like to see these addressed before we go too far down the road. So, because the affordability piece, making it possible for people to actually get in them is also key. Yes, we can get them done, and the recommendations from the four architects that we had of why can't we make them large enough for larger, why there are minimums on that. The height outside of Old Town is limited to 16 feet. So I think I'm not comfortable yet knowing that we're doing the right thing with this ordinance as is. So just like to know more.
And so are you suggesting we propose some amendments tonight before second reading, or are you suggesting that we postpone the first reading discussion, or what would you like to see?
I don't like to postpone anything, but in this case, I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing. So I guess I'm recommending that we postpone the first reading, but I don't know how my fellow counselors feel about that. These are just some of the thoughts going through my head.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Friedman?
Yeah, and I would say I share the desire to increase affordability. I think it's important. And I mean, I think you look at those numbers in terms of permits, like clearly we don't have a broad level of uptake in ADUs across our community yet. And so certainly we should consider things that, support our community in doing this, those that want to, and in some cases maybe incentivize. I guess what I would say though is the changes that are being presented to us here, I think, are common sense changes too, that I haven't heard opposition to the changes proposed, just that we should also do more. And I think that's a fair point, but I guess I'm not sure we should postpone anything for this. This seems like fairly common sense, and we can have sort of more of a, in the land use conversation and within our own conversations, whether it be at planning commission or within this body, what are those things and what would the costs be and the impacts be, and decide sort of, moving ahead. But I guess I'm not sure that it stand in the way of what seems to me like fairly kind of, common sense changes that are being proposed tonight.
Yeah. And I do think there's like sort of a sense of urgency from staff to abide by the state, requirements as well. As our planning department mentioned earlier, there is opportunity to make these changes. It's just a matter of like when. We could, as mentioned by some of our counselors, propose those for tonight. We could also integrate those in the code update that's going to be happening throughout the next couple of months. So really I think we just need to grab a consensus here on sort of when we'd like to see some of these proposed changes being made and what is most appropriate as well under the circumstances. So I'd like to hear from you all, your thoughts, and that way we can move forward. What do you think?
We're looking over at me?
If you'd like.
Sure.
Councilor
I'll go.
Topic,
I think we're kind of in an interesting spot where I think Councilor Friedland just said it. These are kind of common sense changes that we can kind of push forward now, and we're in an interesting spot because of the potential code changes coming down the road. We can kind of do this and then also look towards the future and also look at affordability towards when we start moving forward. I totally hear what our residents are saying, and I understand the situation well. For me, I don't think there's a necessity to postpone this, just because I think, again, we're in a very unique spot where we're going to work on this regardless. We're going to see this again, and if any changes need to come, I'm happy to do those down the road.
thank you. Thoughts from others? Like I said, I do want to gain a consensus here. Seems like there's, including myself, at least 3 counselors that are supportive of these changes, but through the land, the code update. But there are other counselors that are interested in making those changes tonight, or possibly postponing tonight's conversation so that staff can come back with those proposed changes under first reading of the ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, can I get clarification from the city attorney? So if we move forward tonight with, if we want to see the adjustments made prior to second reading, what does that process look like?
So you could direct staff to make certain changes and you could bring it back on, I'm wondering if we'd have to bring it back on a new first reading for a new public hearing. It depends on how substantial the changes are. If it's, a few specific items, I think we could make those changes based on tonight's public hearing and bring it back for second reading with those proposed amendments. But we'd have you adopt the ordinance as amended on second reading and tonight pass it on first reading with direction to staff. So there's a couple of options there.
Okay. Having that information, Mr. Mayor, I'm comfortable moving forward with what we have on the books to at least get the ball rolling, so we're not waiting. And then we can look at additional adjustments, which I think the majority of us are in favor of. It's just timing and perspective, but I'm sure staff has gotten the flavor of what council's looking to do. So I'm comfortable with us moving forward with what we have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other thoughts from council? If not, there is motion language. If someone feels comfortable to make that motion, you may do so.
I move to approve on first reading ordinance number 10, series 2025, amending chapter 26, development and zoning of the code of ordinances regarding regulations for accessory dwelling units.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Councilor Barnes.
Just to be clear, so what we've heard and talked about tonight are things that can also be brought up and considered in the future.
Yeah, just through a different process through the code update. But did you want to add some?
We'll see you at your next meeting for the code update as well, so we can continue it there.
Yeah. So it seems like we have a pretty unanimous consensus to support some of those proposed changes from the community. But yeah, happy to work with you on the right process to go about doing that. Okay, great. So there is a motion and a second. Any other comments? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Say nay. None opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so that does wrap up item O for tonight, which brings us to item P. This is the resolution for resolution number 2025-26, approving a parking modification request for 206 South Public Road for Community Supper Club. We have our planning and building director here to get us started.
Good evening, council. Stephen Williams, planning and building director, and as stated, this is a parking modification for 206 South Public Road. We'll begin with an introduction, and then the applicant will give a short presentation before staff provides our analysis of the code criteria, and then you'll have an opportunity for questions for both the applicant and staff before discussion and a motion. This is a public meeting versus a public hearing. The applicant is BV Builders. Scott Skiba is here tonight. He is with Community Supper Club, so he'll present on behalf of the applicant. The location is 206 South Public. It is on the east side of South Public Road, north of East Cannon and just south of East Cleveland. It is within the B1 zone district, and it's also still within the Lura urban renewal overlay. It is roughly 7,000 square feet in size as a piece of property. The building's 2,700 square feet, and the proposed addition is roughly 260 square feet. That's driving the parking modification. So a little history on this property. In 2016, the city approved a planned unit development for the conversion of the original building to turn into a restaurant. As part of that PUD, we modified some setbacks, and we also modified the parking requirement. So at that time, a 50% parking reduction was approved. That allowed for 9 spaces to be provided for the 2,700 square foot restaurant, where 18 were required. And then where we are now is that we're doing an additional parking modification that's driven by 2 components, which we'll get into here shortly, one of which is the patio enclosure. So I think most folks are familiar with Community. The covered patio area on the south east corner of the site that's underneath this metal shed roof is already enclosed in canvas, but in order to actually formally enclose it, and condition it through the building code process. It is a different addition. It is considered an outdoor patio still with that canvas enclosure, but once you condition the space, it's a formal square footage addition, which requires the site plan amendment, which is now administrative. The parking piece is still at your discretion. But we'll get to that SPAR as long as the parking modification is approved tonight. So here is the existing floor plan on the top left, and the proposed addition is highlighted in red on the bottom right. And then the parking modification, as I've already mentioned, includes a patio enclosure. It also is an update to the existing agreement that community has with the property owner to the immediate north, which is 102 East Cleveland Street. So originally, community was approved to have 3 parking spaces on their site and 7 parking spaces, actually 6 parking spaces. They needed 9 total. They did provide 7 on the northern property through their original agreement. They've lost 1 space on their site because they moved their trash enclosure at the request of their neighbor to the north part of their site, which is actually probably better access off the alley, gives them more space than coming directly off of South Public. But that trash enclosure is here. It means they have 2 on-site spaces. And then their most recent lease agreement with the property owner to the north resulted in 5 parking spaces versus the 7 that they originally had. So they're reducing 2 through the lease agreement. They need 2 more through the addition. Effectively, their request is to provide 7 spaces where 20 would currently be required. And then I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Hi, everybody. My name's Scott Skiba. I'm the operations partner at Community. So as Stephen kind of brought up, it's a little more convoluted than that, but basically the previous owner of the building had leased us 7 spaces. Originally he had leased us 6, but then we actually got an additional once we actually painted the lines. So then we got 7, he leased us 7 spots. So we had 10. We were like, okay, we had enough complaints from neighbors and actually some city people about the amount of trash trucks that were then residing on South Public Road and how they were getting rolled out, and we were causing more of an issue because we were getting trash removed 3 times a week. So we had still technically had our 10 spots. So we were like, okay, we'll move our trash around the back. As Stephen pointed out, like it makes it so the trash trucks are not on South Public Road. We'll take one of our spots away. The new building owner bought it from the previous owner. He then changed the lease and came back to us, and we technically, as you can you mind pulling that? Sorry.
Here, 2. And then here.
Thank you. So as you can see where this car is parked, but it's not marked, that's still technically our spot. He just did not refer to the addendum on the lease when he rewrote the lease, and I provided Stephen with our initial lease from the original owner of the building, which then he added the extra spot and addendum, but the addendum was not given to the next building owner. And so he doesn't even realize that there's 6 spots back there. So he just handed us like his version of the lease that was just changed with the names, but it had the original without the addendum. So we technically do actually have 6 in the back that we use and are signed by us, but he just doesn't realize that there's actually 6 spots in the back of the building. And he took the one away that was actually on South Public Road. I'm assuming for hopeful use for his other tenants. So technically we still at 9, and now we're in this position where we are not adding any guest counts. We're not increasing how many people we can have within the building. We actually pulled that way back during COVID, and we really haven't changed that. We're literally just trying to actually enclose our front patio so we can regain some of that initial that we were approved for table space, if that makes sense. We're not trying to go over what our initial approval was for guest count for fire code. We're just actually spreading it out more, if that makes sense. If everybody remembers COVID, our community table wasn't really as charming as you could imagine. So we had to make some changes, and in that process, we lost quite a bit of our interior square foot space where we could see people, and people just liked it better, and so we're trying to hopefully create a space that we do use full seasons, because we do have heaters in there and roll down walls, and we use it all the time. We're not really actually changing our impact, we're just actually making it enclosed, putting in booths, making it look right, so it actually feels like it's part of a restaurant.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. I think next we'll have the staff analysis, and then we'll have questions for the applicant or for staff afterwards.
So section 26-2010 outlines how one can request a parking modification and city council's discretion to approve one. For tonight's request, it involves criteria 2 and 3, which are parking needs based off of a non-residential use, which the restaurant is, and vary periods of that use. So again, this is an existing business with an existing patio. Staff also does not think the impact will be measurably different from what's existing. And then the hours of operation community outlined in their narrative are from 12 to, their peak hours are from 12 to 2 for lunch, and then after traditional business hours from 5 to 7 for dinner, so they differ from their neighboring businesses. And then just a little bit of background, which we've gone over previously, but if we enforced our current regulations, they would need 20 spaces, and that would cover up roughly half the site. And so there are competing objectives within our code for pedestrian-friendly environments and for activating the street frontage, which we think the parking requirements as they currently stand would kind of combat. So for all of those reasons, staff is recommending approval of Resolution 2526, granting the parking modification request to waive the additional parking required for both the addition and then to allow for the update to the amount of parking required through the applicant's off-site parking agreement with their neighbor to the north. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. All right, we'll turn over to council for questions either for staff or the applicant. Okay.
Do you have a question? I mean, there's really no changes to your operation, so this doesn't seem like a concern. I guess the only question I have is the agreement with your neighbor to the north seems like it. I mean, it's the majority of the parking. That just seems like a tenuous spot potentially to be in. I mean, I'm not saying anything that you haven't already thought. I guess I just making that comment that I think, we've gotten a few of these where it's like looking at reducing the parking, which I think makes a lot of sense, but sometimes it's relying on neighbors, and to me, that's just a challenge, right? Where if it changes, that could be of concern. So just a comment of like, that might get us into challenges, and I'm sure you have, how many staff do you have typically on a shift, right?
You're talking about on a max of about 10 to 12, depending on the, level of volume, but, 4 to 5 during the day.
Right.
And then,
right.
But yes, to your point, and also to Stephen's point, they're just conflicting ideas and concepts where it's like, we want to activate downtown and be this cool thing, but where do you put parking? And, Stephen was like this, we had even had an exchange in emails, and I'm like, they just didn't think about parking in 1940 when the building was built. And I can't, I don't know what else to do. And when you're dealing with certain people that do own buildings downtown that are not property owners and necessarily invested in this community, their priorities are not the same as yours. And I am relying on someone who just owns things. So there is, it does make it a little more difficult and a little more stressful, especially when Graham just managed to miss one number when he looked at the lease, and we were like, oh, we didn't go back and check with him, to be like, oh, this is how many parking spots you actually have on this property, and you don't know. You know what I mean?
Right, totally.
So, yes, it is a little bit frustrating, and we have tried to, and when me and Stephen did discuss it, it was like, I did try to outsource it, but there's not really any place else in that block where anybody does have that kind of parking. You have to go to the newer buildings to a block down before you even get to buildings that actually have adequate parking options, and at that point, how applicable is it and how does it actually work, and are we giving a roadmap when people, you know what I mean? Like it's,
Totally, yeah.
so.
Well, thank you for
Yeah.
talking through that a little bit.
Of course.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Other questions for staff or the applicant? Mayor Pro Tem Wong?
Yes, it's not so much a question, so it's more of a statement. I think, having been on planning commission when community came before us, seeing what it has done since it's opened, I think it's a no-brainer for us to make the accommodations. I want to just acknowledge that Laura had worked with other landowners who have parking spots to allow public parking within those lots. Primarily like just north of Santiago's, behind the Anschmont's jewelry store, behind what was, or what is Tio Cali. There's parking arrangements, so I think there's plenty in the area. And again, just the activation of downtown, we have what we have, but we should also be proud of what we have, because it is what makes us a community. So I see no issues with this, and I'm ready to move forward. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Councilor Burns?
Just like to, I don't know, double down on what Councilor Wong said, but I wasn't on planning commission, so I think I have no problems with moving forward this, and I don't think it's a problem at all. I think it's what we want, is to activate that area, and parking, there's plenty of parking, I believe.
Okay. All right, I think then we can take a motion from council if there aren't any more questions. I have the motion language up here. If someone feels ready to go.
I can do it. I move to approve resolution number 2025-26, approving a parking modification request for 206 South Public Road Community Supper Club.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on that. Any other comments? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. I'm not trying to be rude. I gotta go help with bedtime. So
Oh, you're good.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time.
Of course. Thanks for being here. Okay, so that wraps up regular business for tonight, which brings us down to staff reports. We'll begin with the city attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have any reports tonight. Appreciate it.
All right, on to the city manager's report.
Turn this thing on. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, councils. So first I want to just say, if you were at the farmer's market, you know that picture, but we are still pulling stats, but want to just say we had a very successful relaunch of the farmer's market on Sunday. This was also the first time that we deployed our professional barricades, and they went off very smoothly and looked much better than probably having huge trucks at the entrance, and much more welcoming. So huge thanks to staff that made the event successful, and we just look forward to every Sunday being down there. Also, following the April workshop on the 701 Pocket Park, I am pleased to announce that we did finally get Excel sign-off on the gas turnoff, and we'll begin demolition of that building, weather pending tomorrow, given the rain, but sometime this week, so we are moving forward with that piece. And then, as a reminder, we have Art Night Out beginning again on this Friday, May 9th, so looking forward to seeing counselors at their booth, and staff will also have various booths there as well. And then, following the suggestion at the work plan as well about making sure that our work plan is accessible on our website, you can now click that link and it'll take you directly to the work plan versus having to go through an agenda packet. So this is also located on the council webpage. You can scroll down, but this is the direct link as well for our community members and for council to look at it. And then our final bond exploration meeting related to sustainability will be May 15 at 6 p.m. here at Council Chambers. Again, will be recorded and available on our website. And then maybe my most exciting news for the evening is that, in March, the city announced the establishment of a new community services department to include library, parks, recreation, open space, senior services, and golf. And so over the past few weeks, we have been working diligently to create a job description to fill the key role of our community services director. And I am pleased to announce that after posting, we have selected internally to hire Director Melissa Heisel as our new and first ever Community Services Director. So as many of you know, and many in the community know, I don't have to repeat all of her accolades, but she has worked for public service for more than 20 years, including 14 here in Lafayette, and just brings the experience, background, and leadership skills to bring this department to the next level. So I was hoping she would stay, but don't blame her for not staying. But please congratulate me when you see her for our new Community Services Director.
Of course.
And then moving forward to May 20th, as was mentioned, we will be doing a presentation update on the land use code update. We'll have 2 public hearings. One will be for an annexation eligibility hearing for the Gateway Project, or otherwise known for the Kairoy development, as you scheduled a few meetings ago. We also will have a PUD amendment related to the former King Supers and the Vasa Fitness Center. And then we will be doing our first kind of mid-year board, commission, and committee appointments. And then our May 27th workshop, we will be doing our capital bond exploration engagement and polling. So our statistically valid poll has closed, as well as our community one that we will be presenting findings from there to continue those conversations to determine whether council wants to continue moving forward for this November election, and what, if any, sort of projects that you would like to put on that. And then we will also be doing a board, commission, and committee potential code updates. So now that we've gone through the first full year of kind of the November full cycle and this mid-year appointment, we'll be discussing any potential code updates, what worked, what didn't work well, and then also, I can't remember which meeting exactly, but it also came up under new ideas to discuss the potentials of term limits. So we'll be bringing forward what other communities do to have that conversation as well that evening. And that is all I have for you tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thank you so much. Okay. Well, then we'll wrap up tonight with council comments, beginning with Councilor Tapi Bigu.
Great, not much from me, just, I was at the farmer's market, it was absolutely incredible. What a great job. I'm also excited for Art Night Out, and then the only other thing that I'm excited about is tomorrow's the end of legislative session for the state of Colorado, and I'm very, very excited.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's all I have.
Nice. Awesome. All right, Councilor Barnes.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to give an update on the DDA. We're meeting next week, and we've established the DDA next week. We're going to be doing workshops to spool us up and get us fully ready to function. And next week we'll be kicking off things with a workshop focused on reflecting on the past 25 years of work done by Laura. Then in June, our June meeting, we will have Downtown Colorado Incorporated. We'll be leading a workshop and a training session for us. And then in July, we have a person named Brad Siegel from Progressive Urban Management. And they are the group that authored Old Town Tomorrow, which is our charter, our guiding document. And so we're doing a strategic workshop with them. And then in August, we will be building on the July workshop and hearing a presentation on the proposed budget and an initial implementation plan for DDA's priorities. And this is to make sure we are up and ready to go and by the fall. So we're just enhancing our capacity to do the right thing moving forward, knowing the past and being ready to move forward. Moving on to the Senior Advisory Board, they are continuing their work to look into, for older Americans, what we need to consider, and are actually going to tour. They're looking to tour the Broomfield Community Center, the Louisville Recreation Senior Center, and the Broomfield Community Centers, just to make sure they're doing their research on what exists in other places. So if there's anything they can present to us, they will give us that piece. And last thing is farmer's market. I was actually on a farm earlier that morning, so I didn't make it till the very end. But when I got there, oh my, like I could not believe how the feedback from people came in. They were just super happy about it. I talked to Spice Farms from Longmont, and they said that they really were impressed with how many people came in from Westminster, not Westminster, Westminster. And that kind of blew their minds because they were checking where people were coming in from. So I guess there was a really big draw, obviously. And also just tapped in with the Little Herbal Apothecary, and they said they had people packing their business from the farmer's market. So I'm thinking it was probably great all around for that whole area through there. And of course, I got some feedback from the people who biked over there. We'll have more discussions about this. And some of the feedback was that there was great bike parking at Romero's and Community and Odd 13, but not so great near East Simpson and Jack's Ranch. So those are places that are not right on public road, but those are the bike places that we see right now. So maybe we could talk about things to do to help bikers know where they're going so they can make it in there. And that's all I have.
Awesome, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Wong.
Yes, just a couple of items, Mayor. First, I wanted to acknowledge the end of the legislative session with an actual endorsement of HB 251315. It's the vacancy bill currently sitting in the legislature. It is a bipartisan bill, has garnered bipartisan support, and it should be passed. So speaking from a community that has unfortunately had 2 vacancies in the last 4 years that has impacted our representation, I think it is a sensible next step, although not the final step that I would like to see, but certainly a good step in the right direction. So I want to do a shout out for support for HB 1315.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what?
Yes, HB 1315 lays out a process in which those who, once a vacancy is created in the state legislature, the House or Senate, that the appointee will sit for the next election and will not be guaranteed the seat for a number of years. So we'll have the seat open, fill the vacancy through till the next election, very similar to what we do on council. So very excited to see that move forward. But that's, again, wanted to just do a shout out to that for the state legislature. Also wanted to say that there is a Dr. Cog meeting tomorrow night, just a workshop, so it's a virtual. There's also a Northwest Mayors and Commissioners meeting on Thursday with an update from our lobbyists, both at the federal and state level, as far as further conversation about Front Range Rail. And then I also want to do a shout out again to the farmers market. I was there at 9 a.m. By 9:20, it was packed. So really great to see the turnout. And I know a lot of our residents tend to show up early. So it was great to see that, and excited for this to be the beginning of the season, and ask for the neighbors in the neighboring community to please bear with us as we still deal with traffic, and when we have a large event downtown, that it's in the best interest of really the larger community, and it's what makes Lafayette special. So, but I think that if any of us who were there, it completely blew away any other farmer's market, let I say, shy of what's at Cherry Creek and Denver. So I know the other ones in our neighboring communities, it was like 4 times as large. So 3rd time's a charm when it comes to farmer's market in our city. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Friedland.
Yeah, not too many updates for me. Open Space Board last week talked about capital projects. They got some updates on departmental activity, had some good discussion, some new membership coming in there. SRAB, Sustainability Resiliency this week, again, talking about capital projects, and also we'll be talking about their different board, their working projects, which are moving ahead, which is really exciting. So grateful to both of those groups and excited to talk sustainability resiliency this Thursday. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilor Gallegos.
I just wanted to wish a happy Teacher Appreciation Day to all of the teachers in and who serve our community, especially our mayor.
And you.
And I also wanted to say congratulations to all of our graduates. Graduation season is among us. I believe BVSD graduations start late next week.
It's that time of year again. All right, thank you. And just for me, I would have brought this up earlier. This is for our city manager and city attorney, but I didn't remember until now, so I apologize. But I did send you all over a while back an email from the mayor in Ecualitos, Peru, They did send us over a letter of interest, and so I would just like to work with our city attorney to craft a letter in response to that. The language should be in your inbox, but I'll follow up later. And I think after that, the next step would be to bring in the nonprofit organization, One Voice for Change, bring that proposed letter to you all for your approval or recommendations on any changes, and then we can follow through, with the official step, which would be to officially create a sister city program. I'm still waiting to hear back from the other community in El Salvador. That's been a little bit of more of a struggle, and then I also want to see, if in the meantime, if there are any other opportunities that you all see, please let me know. We definitely want to make sure that there is a stable nonprofit, though, here in Lafayette that is willing to kind of bridge that relationship beforehand. But that should be coming soon. I do apologize for the delay on that. But international communication, can be slow. So, all right, well, that's all from me. We do have 2 very important executive sessions that we need to get to tonight. Will you all please wait until both motions are made before we head to the back room? So I'll start with the first one. I move to adjourn to executive session pursuant to sections 24-6-4024A and 24-6-4024E of the Colorado Revised Statutes to discuss the potential sale of city-owned real property located in West Ridge Filing Number 1 subdivision in the city of Lafayette. And 2, for the purposes of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators with respect to the potential sale of such property. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? None opposed. Passes unanimously. Next, for motion 2, I move to adjourn to executive session pursuant to sections 24-6-4024B and 24-6-4024E for the Colorado Revised Statutes. 1, to confer with the city attorney and special legal counsel to the city for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions, and 2, for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators, both with respect to the contract for construction for the South Boulder Road Multimodal Improvements Project. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? None opposed. That passes unanimously. The city council will adjourn to executive sessions and will not return to an open meeting. The time is now 7:14 p.m. Thank you.